All right, so as promised, this is the parts list. I will preface this by saying I'm not a speaker expert. I'm not a speaker designer. I didn't study any of this. I was following plans. I did change the design quite a bit from what the original plans were, but I kept the internal dimensions the same because I know that the volumetric measurement of the speaker is important to how it sounds. And I didn't do any of those calculations myself, so I kept that the same. So some of these things, I'm making some educated assumptions or things that I thought I understand. I might be wrong, and feel free to correct me in the comments nicely, just so that we can, help somebody else that might be reading along or following along. But anyway, so these are the parts, and I'm just going to kind of run down, explain, well, just mention what they are. You can read for yourself. I mean, well, probably read for yourself. If not, listen, whatever. But anyway, I guess the first things first, some port tubes. There was a pair of those. Those are the two round tubes that went in the back of the thing. They're moving air. Obviously, that's how you hear things, the sound waves, air moving. And those port tubes just to let that air move in and out of the thing. And my understanding was that that helps with the bass frequencies a little bit better because these are only 4-inch drivers. But speaking of which, next up, those tubes were $2 a piece, so pretty cheap. Next up, the drivers. So these were 4-inch reference drivers, 4 ohm, and those were $30 a piece. Those are the two big speakers. Not really big, they're 4-inch, but the speakers that were in the two sides. So those are the main drivers that handle most of it. And so those are the things that got installed. And then third. So next up we had the actual tweeter. So that's the 5/8-inch silk dome tweeter. Nothing really special there, but it was easy to install. I don't know if I would use that one going forward if I were to do another one, but it definitely worked because you just drilled a hole. I can't remember if it was 3/4 or 7/8 or something like that, and then just stuck it in, friction fit. So that worked out great. Again, I mean, it was $2. So probably not the best, but it sounds pretty good to my ear anyway. I'm not a super audiophile, and I'm using it mostly in a shop space or a living room, not sitting in front of my stereo and whatever. So anyway, I have a lot of disclaimers here. Let's see. So we've got the tweeter there. Board. So this is, I believe, discontinued. I'm pretty sure it's discontinued, and they've replaced it with a newer version. They have one that's pretty much exactly the same, but it's an updated Bluetooth 5.0 version, I think, or 5.2, whatever the version is. So it's the 2-channel 30 watt, so stereo and then 30 watts per channel. Yeah, you could have a lot more, but again, 4-inch reference drivers, and it's a Bluetooth speaker, so it doesn't need a lot. And that's the thing that's got a whole bunch of random crap that you can connect to it. So there's just a bunch of stuff that comes here later in a second that it just connects to that. So that was $30. And then speaking of things that connect to it, the function cable is like $4. And then we've got some LEDs and a DC jack. So those are things, also like $1.50, that whole less than like $7. Those are the things that attach to the back, which down here. So this guy, this little, whatever it is, the black dish that they call it here for about $5. That was that plate that I installed in the back middle, and that had all the things like the LEDs and there's a DC jack in here, like the paddle switch and the chicken knob head thing, the volume switch, like $1, $2 here and there, whatever. The main power supply, so that's here. So this is a pair of 0.35 millihenry. I think that's the right for inductance. So these are the crossover coils. So those are 2 coils. So the 2 are the ones that get used for the reference drivers, and this gets added into these guys, these capacitors. So there's 2 capacitors. So they were like $8 a piece, and then a $12 roughly capacitor. So those capacitors get combined together along with the inductance coils, and those were the crossovers for the driver speakers to kind of cut out some of those highs so that they weren't pushing as much of the high, so that you kind of don't end up with a really, really high having those 2 reference speakers plus the tweeter. So that's what those were for. And then there's the 0.24 millihenry, wherever that guy is. And that gets combined with the other 40 microfarad capacitor. And that makes the crossover that cuts out the lows that gets then sent off to the tweeter. So those are the 2 crossovers. There was kind of 2. There was one that was independent, that was just driving one reference speaker channel. And then there was the other one that was kind of a combined. It took I think it was the left channel is the one that's driving the tweeter. So it had the normal one that was running the crossover for the reference speaker that would kind of cut off some of those highs so that it wasn't quite so tinny. And then the other part of that had a crossover that would cut out all the lows and then feed that to the tweeter. Again, following plans could have been better. I'm sure it could have because these parts weren't that expensive. 18 by 24, so a foot and a half by 2 foot, just half-inch acoustic dampening foam. That was all the foam that was peel and stick that I stuck to the inside of the speaker just to kind of help deaden some of the reverberations inside the speaker so you don't end up with, I guess, secondary sound, or you might hear like a weird frequency cancellation, and I don't know exactly the science behind it because, again, not a speaker designer, but that was just all the stuff that I stuffed inside the speaker that I guess is supposed to help with stuff like that. So it was roughly 200 bucks after shipping. So it was whatever it was right down here. So it was basically 190 before shipping, about $10 shipping, and about $200 after shipping. And that obviously didn't include any of the wood, or there was some wire and some speaker wire that I already had that I used in there, and solder and finish and blah, blah, blah. So all in all, I'd say it was probably on the order of maybe, there was a chunk of curly maple, a little bit of Paduke, and some oak, and finish stain. I would say all in it was probably 250 bucks-ish, not including my time. So, I mean, it's not cheap. Certainly you could spend $250 and go get a professionally designed, professionally made production Bluetooth speaker. You could get a pretty decent speaker for 250 bucks, but that's not the point. The point is this one looks cool. I like it, and I think it sounds pretty good for what it is, and I used it in my shop for about 7 years before I brought it into the living room, so it certainly got the job done, and I'm happy with it. But anyway, that was a much longer and more in-depth deep dive on the parts than I thought it would be. So if you actually made it this far, say, holy crap, that was a lot, and put it in a comment below so I know you actually made it. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching once again, and I will catch you in the next one. Oh, man.